Class, let's continue our discussion. We're done with interest number 6. Let's go. Class, let's continue our discussion. We're done with interest number 6. Let's go to number 7. We have bad debt expense. Okay, bad debt expense. Well, ang kailangan mo natandaan dyan, class, deductible siya if it's an actual write-off. Okay? So, in accounting class, diba, meron tayong two approaches. Tama? Meron tayong allowance method and then meron tayong direct write-off method, if I'm not mistaken. Now, sa BIR, direct write-off method lang siya. Wala siyang allowance method. Okay? So, to differentiate class, tingnan natin. Ito yung accounting, ito yung tax. For example, class, December 31, year 1. Tama ba? Meron tayong entry dyan. Debit budget expense, credit allowance for doubtful accounts. Kay tax, wala niyan. Wala siyang ganyan. Again, hindi siya gumagamit ng allowance method. So, it means, for accounting purposes, meron kang expense. For tax purposes, wala. Now, year 2, nagkaroon ng write-off. Debit ADA, credit AR sa accounting. Ngayon class, kay tax naman, ang entry dyan is budget expense, credit AR. Yun. Dun pa lang siya may deductible expense. Actual write-off. Okay? And if you remember class, gross income, yung ni-write-off mo na yan, what if na-recover mo siya next year? Okay, apply natin yung tax benefit rule. Okay? So again, for budget expense, ang damo lang class, CBAR, direct write-off method lang yung approach niya. So, ibig sabihin, deductible expense siya sa year kung kailan nagkaroon ng actual write-off. Okay, that's number 7. And tingnan natin class yung requisites. Hindi pa natin mababasa. Let's go to our G-sheets. Meron tayong 5 requisites. Letter A, existing indebtedness due to the taxpayer which must be valid and legally demandable, connected with trader business, must not be sustained in a transaction entered into between related parties, actually ascertained to be worthless. O yun yung letter E, actual charge-off. Yun yung actual write-off. Okay? So that is bad debts. Let's go to number 8. Doon naman tayo class sa depreciation, okay, amortization, and depletion. Ayan. Depreciation, amortization, and depletion. Actually, kung ano yung alam natin in accounting, yun din yung applicable sa tax. Got it? So wala sila masyadong differences. So ibig sabihin class, ito yung mga allowed methods for tax purposes. Meron tayong straight line, which is yung pinaka-common in accounting. Meron tayong declining balance method. Okay, declining balance pwedeng double declining or pwedeng 150% declining method. Okay? We can also use sum of the year's digits and other methods, okay, prescribed by the DOF Secretary. Secretary of Finance. Prescribed by Secretary of Finance. Alright? Recommended by the CIR. Okay? So, dito ko. For tax purposes class, ito yung mga pwede natin gamitin. Which is, ito yung alam natin mga familiar in accounting. Straight line method, declining balance, pwedeng double declining or 150%, sum of the year's digits, and other methods prescribed by DOF Secretary, recommended by the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Okay. So, well, again, kung ano yung alam natin in accounting, yun din yung gagamitin natin for tax. Kaya lang class, merong mga special cases. So, ito FYI na lang to class, no? Special cases for depreciation and depletion. Okay? Merong special provisions or very specific provisions in the tax code related to properties used in petroleum operations. Okay? Petroleum operations. So yung mga large oil companies in the Philippines or yung mga oil companies, for example, Petron, Shell, Sea Oil, Chevron, may mga very particular provisions for them, okay? If yung properties class, ginagamit, used in petroleum operations, ito yung rules dyan, okay? Kapag ginagamit yun in production, used in production, okay, yung properties, or if the properties are not used in production, right? Pag ginagamit sa production, okay, ang allowed methods for them, straight line and double declining, okay? Wherein yung useful life is shorter between 10 years, or actual useful life. Alright? So, erase natin. 10 years or actual useful life, whichever is shorter. So, dating class, ito yung mga very particular provisions for petroleum companies. Okay? Pag ginagamit sa operations, straight line and double declining lang. Okay? 10 years or actual life, whichever is shorter, yung rule mo sa useful life. Okay? Pag not used in production, laging straight line method lang yan. Straight line method, and yung useful life natin is always 5 years. Yun. Pag not used in production, 5 years. So ito was FYI na lang to. Ito yung mga kailangan tandaan, okay, before the board exam. Now, meron pa tayong, ito yung for petroleum, tama? Petroleum yan. Meron ding properties used in mining. Okay? Ito kasi may mga special provisions in tax codes for these industries, no? Properties used in mining, tignan mo class yung useful life niya. Pag yung useful life niya is 10 years or below, okay, ang gagamitin mo is the actual useful life. Right? If yung useful life niya is more than 10 years, yung gagamitin mo is, the useful life is between 5 years and useful life. Okay? For example, guys, useful life niya is 10 years or below, actual. For example, 9 years. Pag sumobra, for example, 12 years, between 5 years and useful life, may option si taxpayer, yung mining company na gamitin is, kunyari, 12 years yung useful life, any year between 5 years and 12 years. Okay? Yun yung rule for mining companies. Alright, class. And the last one is for depletion. No? Depletion, well, if you remember yung FAR, so depletion, applicable yan sa mga mining companies. No? For example, actually, yun yung IFRS 6, kung maaalala nyo. Maybe wasting assets, naalala nyo yung exploration and development costs, mga ganun. Ngayon, class, meron din special provisions for them. If yung cost, okay, yung intangible exploration and development cost, okay, or yung mga wasting assets, kapag in-incur mo sila for non-producing wells or mines, okay, or pag in-incur mo sila sa producing wells or mines, okay, syempre class, for example, magmamine ka, okay, mga natural resources, gold, silver, ganyan. Hindi naman tayo sigurado na meron talagang laman yung land na yun, tama? Yung deposit na yun, kung meron talagang gold or copper doon or silver doon, tama? Pwedeng wala, ang tawag natin doon, non-producing. Pwedeng meron, ang tawag natin doon, producing. Okay? Ngayon, class, pag non-producing yan, outright expense yan. Expense 100% yan. Okay, non-producing yan. Tama? Hindi ka magbe-benefit. So, lahat yan, i-expense mo na. Ngayon, pag producing, merong option yung taxpayer. Pwedeng outright, 100%, or pwedeng capitalized and depreciate. Capitalized and depreciate. Okay? Or amortized. Capitalized or depreciate or amortized. Okay, actually guys, merong similar concept to sa accounting. Naalala niyo yung successful effort method? I don't know if naalala niyo pa. Pero basically, dun sa successful effort method, ika-capitalize mo lang if successful yung naging exploration, yung mining. Okay? Kapag walang non-producing, walang deposits, okay, hindi naging successful, ina-expense yun. Ganun din to. Meron siyang similar concept. Okay? Ayan. Okay, malapit na class. So, please bear with me. Ilang items na lang yan. So, I think 12 items lang tayo. So, ilan na yan? 8. Okay. Tama ba? 8 na. Yes. So, let's go to number 9. So, very important to class. Kasi, again, yung mga students, ang tendency, minimemorize lang nila yung mga deductions. Hindi nila naiintindihan kung ano yung mga deductions na yun, ano yung nature ng mga deductions na yun, ano yung reasons why deductible sila. Let's go to number 9. We have entertainment. Okay. And amusement. Entertainment, amusement, and recreation expenses. Or commonly known as EAR. EAR. Entertainment, amusement, and representation expenses. Or recreation expenses. So basically, class, ito yung mga representation expenses. Okay? So ano ba yung mga representation expenses? Yun yung mga client-related expenses. For example, class, meron kang client, no? May meeting ka with client. Siyempre, gumastos ka dyan. Yung gas, papunta dun sa meeting place nyo. Siyempre, kumain pa kayo ng client. Nag-dinner kayo. Alright? And then, nilibre mo yung client, syempre, para makuha mo siya. Potential client, for example. And then, nag-golf pa kayo. Ayan. So, mga yun, ang tawag ngayon doon, representation expenses. Okay? Or entertainment, amusement, and recreation expenses. Okay, now, hindi lahat ng nagastos mo for that deductible. Dapat reasonable yan. Okay? Paano sa magiging reasonable? Nag-impose ng limits yung tax code. Okay? Depende yan sa nature ng business mo. If ang nature ng business mo is, nagbebenta ka ng goods, sale of goods, or sale of services. Sale of services. Pag sale of goods class, ang limit mo is 0.5% of net sales. Okay? Pag sale of services, 1% of net revenues or receipts. Okay? So, mas mababa yung limit pag sale of goods. Well, obviously, pag sale of goods, syempre mas malaki yan, yung gross amount yan compared to services. Tama? So, again, pag sale of goods, 0.5% or 0.5% of net sales yung limit natin. Pag sale of services naman, 1% of revenues or receipts. So, yung actual year versus the limit, syempre, whichever is lower, yun yung deductible natin. Gets? Okay, next is discount to senior citizen and PWD. Actually, i-expound natin to pagdating natin sa preferential taxation. No? Di-discuss natin yung senior citizens and PWDs. So basically class, to give you an idea, senior citizens and PWDs, marami silang benefits. Okay? And few of those benefits, syempre related yan sa deductions natin, no? Yung senior citizens and PWD, they are exempt from VAT. Tanda mo yan. Exempt sila from VAT and they are entitled to 20% discount. Okay? Ayan, so yung mga kilala yung senior citizens or PWD, tanda yan, exempt sila sa VAT and they're entitled to 20% discount. Yun yung point of view of the senior citizen and PWD. Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, class, tayo yung nagbenta to senior citizens and PWD. Okay? So, ganito yan, class. Yung discount na yan, deductible expense sa atin yan. Okay? Tayo, yung seller, deductible expense sa atin. For example, class, nagbenta tayo to a senior citizen. Selling price natin is 1,120. Okay? Now, exempt sila sa VAT. So, dapat tanggalin natin yung VAT. 1,120 divided by 1.12 times 12%, actually yung VAT niyan is 120. Yung selling price natin, excluding VAT, is 1,000. Alright? Kasi hindi nila babayaran yung VAT niyan, exempt sila dyan. Now, yung 1,000 yan, yun yung basis natin ng 20%. Hindi yung 1,120 ha, yung 1,000. So, yung discount na 20% is 200. Therefore, yung babayaran lang ni senior citizen is 800. Ito lang yung bill niya, 800. Okay? And senior citizen or PWD. Yung babayaran niya, ngayon, tayo as seller, allowable deduction yan, yung 200. Yun yung ibig sabihin natin dyan. Okay? 200 is allowable deduction. Okay, so, malapit na class. 2 items to go. And then, magsagot tayo ng handouts. Apply natin lahat ng pinag-aralan natin na yan. Sige. So, let's go to number na tayo? That's 10. Let's go to number 11. Number 11 is, lang, erase ko lang to, para may space tayo. Okay, so number 11 is about labor training expenses. Labor training expenses. Okay, sir, ano yung labor training expenses na yan? Take note, class, na new provision yan under create. So bago to so listen very carefully. Tingnan natin yung G sheets natin, basahin natin. Labor training expenses under create law. Let's read. And upon effectivity of create, an additional deduction from taxable income of 1/2 of the value of labor training expenses incurred for skills development of enterprise-based trainees enrolled in public senior high schools, public higher education institutions, or public technical vocational institutions duly covered by apprenticeship agreement. Okay? Under the Labor Code of the Philippines, the enterprise shall secure proper certification from DepEd Test etc. Such deductions shall not exceed 10% of direct labor wage. Okay, sir, ano ibig sabihin yan? Ganito yan, class. Ang ibig sabihin yan, ito bago to sa create, yung labor training expenses, actually, yun yung mga related dun sa mga internships and mga on-the-job trainings or OJT. Okay? Yung goal niyan is to encourage companies na mag-hire ng mga interns. Okay? Ang mga OJT or mga apprenticeship. Okay? Yun yung ibig sabihin niyan. Ngayon, yung gagastusin na training for them. Okay? Yung training cost na yun. Meron tayong additional pa na 1/2 of labor training expenses. Additional 1/2 of labor training expenses. For example, class, yung company, okay, let's say nag-work ka sa SGB, okay? Si SGB, nag-intern ka sa SGB. Siyempre, sino ba yung mga nag-intern? Siyempre, yung mga hindi pa graduates, tama? I think required yan yata sa curriculum natin na may internship. Ngayon, pag nag-intern ka sa SGB, let's say, may allowance ka, binayaran ka. Let's say, ang total na binayad sa'yo is, well, huwag ka mag-expect masyadong malaki. Let's say, 10,000 for the whole duration of your internship. 10,000 plus 1/2 niyan, okay, ibig sabihin, plus 5,000, sa books ni SGB, yung deductible niya is 15,000. Parang ganun siya. Okay? Yun ibig sabihin ng additional 1/2. Take note, class, dapat yung training expense na yan, yung related lang dun sa internship program. Hindi yan yung mga labor na binabayad sa mga salaries ng mga nag-work talaga. Hindi. Dapat related siya dun sa program. Now, tingnan natin yung requisites. Letter A, the labor training expenses shall not be more than 10% of the direct labor wage. So, meron tayong limit, class. Yung limit natin is 10% of the direct labor wage. Okay? Kung ano yung sa cost accounting, inaral natin yung direct labor, kung ano ibig sabihin natin doon, yun. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, actual versus 10% of direct labor, whichever is lower, yun yung additional deductible expense natin. Alright? Letter B, the labor training expenses are incurred for skills development, mga trainings. Letter C, the enterprise-based trainees are enrolled in public high school, public higher education institutions, or public technical vocations, for public schools to applicable. No? The training is covered by an apprenticeship agreement under Presidential Decree 442 or Labor Code. Sir, ano yung apprenticeship agreement? Okay, so class, para magkaroon ka ng idea sa apprenticeship agreement, nasa Labor Code kasi yan. No? May specific provisions doon na yung mga internships or mga OJTs, dapat sundin to. Parang ganon. two items. No? Number one, nakalagay dun class na yung internship or OJT dapat hindi mag-exceed ng 6 months. So illegal kapag sumobra ka ng 6 months. Okay? Maximum 6 months lang ha, tandaan yun. And then meron pang isa. Dapat yung bayad sa'yo is not less than 75% of minimum wage. So lagay natin dito. So apprenticeship agreement, apprenticeship na nasa labor code. Okay? Sa labor code, nakalagay dun class, maximum of 6 months. And then, yung wage mo is not less than, or yung allowance mo, 75% of minimum wage. Ayan, yun yung nasa labor code. I don't know if may special exceptions yan. Kung may mga exceptions yan. Kasi I believe maraming internships na walang bayad. No? Hindi ko alam kung paano naging legal yun. Pero pag binasa mo sa labor code, yan nakalagay. 6 months and 75% of minimum wage. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng letter D. Okay, letter E, the company claiming the additional deduction is granted an authority to offer a training program certified by DepEd. Kailangan lang may certifications. Yun yung mga requisites yan. Okay? So FYI, bago siya under Create Law. Okay, so that's number 11. Last one class is number 12. Lagay natin sa number 12 is other expenses. Other expenses, so basically class, ito yung mga expenses na with no specific provisions from the law. Okay? No specific provisions from the law. Pero, nagka-qualify sila dun sa general principles natin. Ano nga ba yung general principles natin, class? In-enumerate natin earlier. It must be yung general principles natin, ordinary and necessary, paid or incurred within the taxable year, connected with trade or business, substantiated with sufficient evidence, not against the law, morals, public policy, public order. If subjected to withholding tax, dapat na withhold and nabayaran si BIR. Okay, so yun yung other expenses. Again, basta mag-qualify ka sa principles natin yan, deductible yun. Okay, for example, class, advertising expense. Okay? Ano pa? Utilities expense. What else? Rent expense. Salaries expense. Insurance expense. Okay, number 6, repairs and maintenance. Number 7, supplies expense. Number 8, miscellaneous expense. So class, yung mga expenses na to, as you notice, kanina in-enumerate natin isa-isa, okay? Yung mga deductible expense, pero hindi lahat yun. Hindi exclusive yun, okay? Kasi meron tayong mga other expenses na hindi naman minention sa tax code. For example, ito yung 8 na yan. Wala naman sa tax code yun eh. Pero alam natin, nagka-qualify siya dun sa general principles natin for deductibility. Ibig sabihin, kahit wala silang specific provision sa tax code, pwede i-deduct yung mga to. Gets? Okay. Now, to end our lecture, no? Tingnan muna natin class, meron ding yung, so far, lahat na discuss natin, ang tawag natin dyan, deductible expenses. Meron din tayong non-deductible expenses. Let's take a look at the G-sheets. Ano lang tayo, familiarize lang natin yung mga non-deductible. Number 1, personal, living, or family expenses. Obviously, hindi naman related sa business yan or exercise of profession, hindi mo pwedeng i-deduct yan as expense. Number 2, any amount paid out for new buildings or permanent improvements to increase the value of any property. Okay, pag ganun, pag increase the value, for example, pinalitan mo yung roof ng building, okay? So yun, yung mga ganun, or pinarenovate mo, hindi yan deductible expense, okay? Number 3, any amount expended in restoring property, in making the good exhaustion thereof, provision allowances being made. No, ganun, restoring the property, increasing the value of the property, hindi yung deductible. Number 4, premiums paid, okay? On any life insurance, tingin ka dun sa last part, when the taxpayer is directly or indirectly a beneficiary under such policy. I think na-mention ko sa gross income. For example, si corporation, no? Binabayaran mo yung premiums nung CFO mo, okay? Pero yung beneficiary nung insurance na yun is the corporation. Hindi deductible expense yun. Tama? So yun yung ibig sabihin yan. Number 5, interest losses between related taxpayers. Kasi again, pag sabing related taxpayers, pag related sila, hindi deductible expense yun. Dapat unrelated yung transactions, okay? Sir, ano ibig sabihin ng related? Ito yung mga examples. A, between members of the family. B, except in the case of distributions in liquidation, between an individual and a corporation more than 50%, okay, in value, etc. Between two corporations, more than 50%. Between the grantor or fiduciary, between the fiduciary trust, fiduciary same person as grantor, between the fiduciary and beneficiary. Okay. So class, tingin lang tayo ng pattern, okay? Ito yung mga related taxpayers, no? So sabi diyang class, kapag yung transaction is between related taxpayers, hindi deductible. Alright? Paano yung related taxpayers? Number 1 dyan, family members. Siyempre, kapag deductible yan, edi makipag-transact ka lang sa family members mo, ang dami mo ng deductible expense. Hindi pwede yun. And then yung iba diyang class, may 50%, blah, blah, blah. Pwede mo sabihin kapag may control. Di ba? Pag more than 50% yung shares mo, may control yun. Ayun. 50%, considered siya as related taxpayer. And then anything na related dun sa trust, okay? Sa trust, yung fiduciary, ano pa yan, grantor, beneficiary. So basta transactions between them, consider yun as related taxpayer. Tanda mo lang yan. Family members, control or more than 50%, and yung parties involved in a trust. Fiduciary, grantor, beneficiaries. Alright? Bribes, kickbacks, and other similar payments, kasi class, isa sa mga principles natin, must not be against laws, public policy, public order, etc. Pag bribe, kickback, yung mga under the table ng mga transactions, syempre hindi yung deductible. Alright? Okay, so, before we go to our handouts, class, punta ka muna dun sa create versus train na sheet. Okay? Baba mo dyan. Sa deductions, meron lang tayong tatlong changes, no? Basically. Under create. Number 1, non-deductible interest expense from 33% naging 20% na yan. Because nagbago din yung R-sheet natin. From 30% naging 25%. Tama? Second difference. Actually, ito, under Bayanihan Act yan. No? Under Bayanihan Act, yung NOLCO natin na na-sustain or na-incur during 2020 and 2021 can be carried over for 5 years. Dati kasi 3 years yan. Okay? Pero again, pag na-incur siya before 2020 and 2021 or after 2020 and 2021, 3 years lang yan. And then number 3, is the labor training expense. Again, yun yung related sa internship and OJT. Okay? So, walang ganyan dati under train. Sa create, 1/2 of the value with a limit. Yung limit natin is 10% of the direct labor wage. Okay. So, ayan yung lecture natin. Get your handouts. Sagot tayo class ng exercises natin. Start muna tayo dun sa problems. So, try natin i-apply yung lessons na tutuan natin from our lecture. Okay? Sige. So, hopefully, madalian na kayo dyan sa deductions. Let's go to number 1. A store building was, problem number 1 tayo ha. A store building was constructed on January 1, 2016 with a cost of 570,000. Ano ba yung tanong? The allowable deduction for depreciation for the year 2021. Yung question ha. How much daw yung depreciation natin for 2021? Ano ba kailangan mo maalala pag depreciation? Sabi ni sir, pag depreciation, kung ano yung alam natin sa accounting, yun din yung sa tax. I-apply lang din natin yung alam natin sa accounting. Cost of 570, its estimated life is 16 years. Scrap value or residual value is 70,000, okay? January 2021, replacement of some worn-out parts of a building costing 50,000 was spent. After the repairs, the building was appraised with a fair market value of 770. Ibig sabihin, nag-increase yung value ng building, okay? Sa accounting, alam natin, pag ganun, pwede natin capitalize, right? The allowable deduction for 2021 is, so gagawin ko lang yung class, yung cost ng building natin is 570,000, tama? Compute natin yung accumulated depreciation as of 2021 or as of 2020. Kasi ang tanong sa atin is 2021. Alright? So, ganito gagawin ko dyan. 570,000 yung cost, less yung residual value natin na 70, divide ko sa useful life of ilang years na? 16, tama? Tapos 2016, tama? 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 5 times 5. Okay, so let's compute the accumulated depreciation. This is times 5, ha? Okay. 570,000 minus 70 divided by 16 times 5, you get 156,250. Accumulated depreciation natin class, 156,250. Book value natin as of December 31, 2020. Okay, minus 570, you get 413,750. Alright, and then nag-incur tayo ng 50,000. Yung 50,000 again, pwede mo i-capitalize yan. So, add natin, plus 50,000. Yung book value natin, after natin i-capitalize is 463,750. Okay, 463,750. And then, ang tanong sa atin is depreciation for 2021, tama? So, ito na yung bago natin book value, 463,750. Wala namang sinabi na nagbago yung residual value natin. So, it's still 70,000. Nakapag-depreciate na tayo for 5 years, 16 years in total, divide natin by 11. $463,750 plus 70,000 divided by 11. Answer, 35,795. 35,795, letter A. Final answer, letter A, 35,795. Okay? So, as you notice, class, walang bago dito. Okay? Di ba ganun ang ginagawa natin sa FAR? Okay, ganito tayo mag-depreciate. Okay? Yung cost minus residual value over useful life, walang difference. Okay? Kaya, very straightforward yung problem number 1. Let's go to problem number 2. On July 1, tingnan mo natin yung questions. We have 2 questions. No? Question number 1. How much can Mr. Y claim as deduction in relation to the lease in 2021? Question number 2, how much can Mr. Y claim as deduction in relation to the lease in 2022? Okay, on July 1, 2019, Mr. X leased his vacant lot for a period of 12 years to Mr. Y. In 12 years, yan yung lease term natin. Class, tama ba si Mr. X, siya si landlord or the lessor? Si Mr. Y, siya si lessee or the tenant. Tama? Ay, di ba sa point of view ni Mr. Y or ni Mr. X pala, landlord, di ba class, na-discuss natin sa gross income yan? Naalala niyan? So, sa gross income, yung concept is, yung mga na-receive niya, yung annual rent, yung mga advance, yung mga sinagot ni lessee, tapos yung leasehold improvements, di ba? Sinasama natin yan, inclusion yan sa gross income, tama? Ngayon class, yung number 2 na yan, ang pinag-uusapan natin is a point of view ni lessee or the tenant. How much naman yung deductible expense niya? Okay, yun tanong dito. Okay, annual rate of 2.4. It was also agreed that Mr. X or Mr. Y will pay the following. Okay, 4.8 million representing rental payment for year 2019 and 2020. Okay, and then, let's see. Annual security deposit of 2.4 million. Okay, annual real property tax of 30,000. Okay. So ang sumagot ng property tax si Mr. Y, which is normally sagot niya ni Mr. X, the property owner. The lease contract provides, among others, that the lessee will construct a 5-story building, 10 million. Okay, ownership shall belong to the lessor upon termination. The building was completed on July 1, 2021, estimated life of 15 years. Meron din leasehold improvements. So again, point of view tayo ng lessee or the tenant. Okay, so ganito gagawin ko dyan, sir. 2021, tama? Ang tanong. So question number 1. Yung deductible expense ni lessee, syempre yung annual rent. Take note, nag-start yung rent 2019, pero ang tanong sa atin 2021. So ingat ka doon. Annual rent natin is 2.4 million. And then yung property tax, since sinasagot mo siya as lessee na dapat si lessor, pwede mo rin yung i-claim as deduction, 30,000. And then yung depreciation of the leasehold improvements, pwede mo rin i-deduct. Okay? So, paano mo compute yan, sir? Meron tayong 10 million, yung cost of the leasehold improvements, i-divide natin by, so class, tama ba yung lease term natin is 12 years? 12 years, tama? That's the first sentence. Kaya lang, na-complete yung building July 1, 2021, after 2 years. So 12 years minus 2 years, yung remaining lease term mo na lang talaga is 10 years. Okay? Divided by 10. And also take note na na-complete siya July 1, middle of the year. So multiply pa natin by 6 over 12. Panyan? Okay? So 10 million divided by 10 times 6 over 12, you get 500,000. 500,000. Total expense, total deductible expense for year 2021. Okay, 2.4 million plus 330,000 plus 500,000, you get 2,930,000. Answer for question 1, 2,930,000. Question number 2, 2022 naman tayo. Okay, annual rent natin is 2.4 million. Property tax natin is also annual, 30,000. And then depreciation natin, so instead of 500,000, hindi ka na magsi 6 over 12. Okay? Kasi whole year na yan eh. So this is 1 million. Alright? 2.4 million plus 1 million, that's 3.4 million plus 30. Answer natin for 2022, 3,430,000, letter C. So question 1 is is Boy, 2930. Question 2 is C, 3430,000. Okay. Siyempre, class, pag ang tanong sa'yo is 2019, siyempre, lahat ng advance payments mo, pwede mo i-deduct agad yun. Okay, advance payments na 4.8 million, pwede mo i-deduct yun for that year. Alright? Sige, so let's go to number 3. Number 3, question number 1, compute for the deductible loss for asset. For asset 1, compute for the deductible loss for asset 2. Okay, yun yung question. Tingnan natin, class. So, ang concept lang sa deductible loss, okay, kung ano yung loss na na-sustain natin or na-incur natin for the year, ima-minus lang natin, class, yung insurance recovery. Alala nyo yan? Yun yung total loss. Tama? Pag partial loss, cost to restore, plus book value, whichever is lower, i-minus mo yung insurance recovery. Okay? So, sabi yung class, a taxpayer engaged in business incurred a partial loss. Meron tayong asset 1, meron tayong asset 2. Okay, so ganito lang gagawin ko dyan. Asset 1, meron tayong book value, 200,000, cost to restore, 120. So, lower is cost to restore. Cost to restore is 120,000. And minus natin, class, yung insurance recovery kasi hindi naman talaga loss yun. Kasi actual cash na makukuha mo yun kay insurance company. So, insurance recovery natin is 50,000. Therefore, for asset 1, answer is 70,000, letter B, or boy. Tandaan mo, again, whichever is lower, kasi gusto ni BIR na sa point of view niya, mas maliit yung deductions para mas mataas yung tax collections niya. Okay? Asset number 2. Okay, book value is 200, cost to restore is 300, whichever is lower, therefore it's the book value na 200,000. And then, minus the insurance recovery na 40,000, 200,000 minus 40, you get 160,000, letter C. Okay, so as you notice, class, hindi mahirap yung computation sa deductions. Okay, more of principles, no? Actually more of theory yung tinatanong sa deductions. Anyway, so let's go to number 4. What is the correct amount of itemized deduction? Sales. Siyempre, hindi yan kasama. X. Interest income, net of 20% final tax. Later, yun yung limit natin sa deductible interest expense. Cost of sales, yung cost of sales ba, class, itemized deduction? Hindi. Yung cost of sales, ginagamit mo siya to compute for the gross income. Okay? Hindi siya part of allowable deductions. Tandaan mo yan, ha? Salaries expense, yes. Interest expense, yes. Rent expense, yes. Advertising expense, yes. Depreciation expense, yes. How about NOLCO? NOLCO is also part of your itemized deductions. Okay? Di ba, diniscuss natin separately yan. Under losses, may NOLCO doon. Itemized deduction yun. Actually, guys, for number 4, ignore mo na lang yung choices, no? Kasi hindi pa nare-reflect nito yung bago na 20% limit sa interest expense. So, compute natin, class, yung limit ng interest expense. Yung actual interest expense natin is, tama ba, class? It's 60,000, right? 60,000. And then yung non-deductible interest expense, compute natin. Non-deductible is interest income, 24,000. Since nakalagay dyan, net of final tax, i-gross up natin. Right? Again, pag silent yung problem, naka-gross up na yun. Pag nakalagay dyan net, i-gross up pa natin. Divide ko by 80%, multiply natin by 20%. Kasi under create law, 20% na. Tama? So, 24,000 divided by 80% times 0.2, 6,000. Iyan yung non-deductible interest expense natin. Therefore, yung deductible interest expense natin is 60 minus 6, you have 54,000. Alright? Sige nga, class, i-add natin lahat. So, sabayan nyo ako mag-compute, ha? Okay, salaries expense, 120. Add natin yung interest expense na 54. Okay, 120 plus 54. Rent expense, 24. Advertising, 6. Depreciation, 5. NOLCO, 50,000. Answer natin, 259,000. Final answer, 259,000. Again, ignore mo na lang muna yung choices. This is our final answer, 259,000. Let's go to number 5. How much is the deductible expense for the year? ABC Corporation paid the following expenses during the year. Interest for late delinquent income tax. Deductible ba yun? Okay. So, actually, class, yung sabi ko kanina, nasan ba yung non-deductible? Balik tayo sa G-sheets natin. Non-deductible. Okay. Na-mention ko ba yung kanina? Ayun. Punta ka dun sa non-deductible taxes, class. Okay. Non-deductible taxes. Ayun. Number 5, non-deductible taxes. Nakita mo yung letter H? Interest, surcharges, penalties on delinquent taxes. Nakita mo yan? Okay. Ito, ingat ka, ha? Yung interest dyan, hindi siya deductible as tax. Okay? Pero deductible siya as interest expense. Right? Ulitin ko, ha? Yung nakalagay dyan na taxes, non-deductible, interest, surcharges, penalties, delinquent, yung interest dyan is not deductible as taxes. Pero deductible siya as interest expense. Remember that. Also, yung surcharges, penalties na yan, yung dalawa, di ba tatlo? Interest, surcharges, and penalties, yung surcharges and penalties, never sila magiging deductible. Gets? Okay. Kaya dito, class, yung interest for late payment is actually deductible as interest expense. Okay, interest expense natin is 5,000. Also pala class yung limit natin na to, na 20%, it applies sa interest expense na, okay pa, so ignore mo yung sinabi ko. But anyway, yung 5,000 na yan, deductible as interest expense. Okay? And then surcharges and penalties, never magiging deductible yan. So lagay mo na X. Interest on bonds issued, yes. So bonds, 40,000. And then, interest on money borrowed from a stockholder owning 90%. O di ba, related taxpayer yan? Di ba sabi ko, meron tayong tatlong related taxpayer. Family member, pag may control, more than 50%, ito 90% may control yan. And yung trust, okay? So, ibig sabihin, non-deductible yung pang-apat na yan. So, answer natin dito, class, is letter A, 45,000. Baka malito kaya, ulitin ko lang. So, ulitin ko lang. Yung interest na to, hindi siya deductible as tax. Di ba nakalagay dyan, non-deductible taxes? Pero hindi ibig sabihin niya na non-deductible expense yan. Ibig sabihin na nito, non-deductible tax expense yan. Alright? Pero pwede mo siyang i-deduct as interest expense. Pero yung surcharges and penalties, never siya magiging deductible for tax purposes. Alright, so A yung sagot natin for number 5. Let's go to number 6. X corporation is engaged in the sale of goods and services. Net sales, net revenue, 3 million and 2 million. The actual entertainment and amusement, or EAR, is 30. How much is deductible EAR expense? Okay, yung EAR natin, meron tayong limit. Tama? Sale of goods, 0.5%. Sale of services, 1%. Right? Okay, so ganito gagawin natin dyan. Meron tayong actual, and then meron tayong yung limit. Okay? Doon muna tayo sa sale of goods. Sale of goods and sale of services. Alright? So yung actual natin, well, meron tayong total natin 30,000. Right? So 30,000, yung sale of goods natin, class, tama ba 3 million? Tama? So ang gagawin ko, prorate ko lang yan. 30,000 times 3 million over 5 million, 3 over 5, yung actual natin for sale of goods is 18,000. Sale of services, obviously, difference sila is 12,000. Does that make sense? And then, yung limit naman. Pag sale of goods, 0.5%. So ang gagawin ko dyan, 3 million times 0.005, you get 15,000. Okay? And then, sa sale of services, 2 million times 1% or times 0.01, 20,000. Okay? 20,000. Since limit yan, pipiliin natin whichever is lower. Sa sale of goods, obviously, ang mas mababa is 15,000. Sa sale of services, ang mas mababa is 12,000. 15 plus 12, total natin classes, 27,000. Answer is boy. Okay? Letter B. Easy. Okay, so let's go to number 7. Number 7 naman, class, we have 3 questions, no? Question number 1, if ABC is an individual and he avails the OSD, how much daw is the taxable income? Question number 2, if ABC is an individual, okay, he opts for itemized deductions, what is the taxable income? And question number 3, if corporation using OSD, what is the taxable income? Class, also, nakalimutan ko yata i-mention, di ba yung corporations kasi quarterly nagbabayad ng taxes yan, tama? So ngayon, sa first quarter, dapat piliin mo na kung itemized or OSD ka. Irrevocable yan for the rest of the year. Okay, hindi pwedeng, uy, first quarter, OSD ako. Second quarter, itemized, tapos OSD ulit. Hindi pwede yan. Irrevocable yan for the rest of the year. If silent, if wala kang pinili, actually, check kasi yan sa ITR. So meron tayo yan, sa filing natin, may separate session tayo doon. Tuturuan ko paano mag-fill out ng BIR forms. Check yan kung itemized or OSD. Okay? If silent, pag walang pinili si taxpayer, itemized deductions yan. Okay, let's go to number 7. ABC is a retailer of goods. Reported the following tax for the taxable year. Question number 1, individual muna. And then OSD. So, ganito gagawin ko dyan, class. Gross sales, okay, 2.6 million. Alright? And then, take note, meron nakalagay na non-operating income. Tama? So, non-operating income, that is, so compute natin 2.6 million times 0.4. Ayan. So, yung OSD natin is 1,040,000. OSD, 1,040,000. And then, non-operating income natin is 100,000. Let's compute. 2.6 million minus 1,040,000 plus 100,000, you get 1,660,000. Final answer for question number 1, net taxable income natin is 1,660,000. So take note, because question 1 natin, individual daw si ABC, therefore hindi natin binawas yung cost of sales. In-ignore natin actually yung cost of sales. Alright? Question number 2, what if individual siya pero nag-itemized deduction? So ganito gagawin natin. Gross sales, meron 2.6 million. Okay? Cost of sales, you have 1.1. And then, allowable deductions natin to 20,000. We also have non-operating income, which is 100,000. Let's compute for the net taxable income. 2.6 million minus 1.1 minus 220 plus 100. Answer natin, class, is 1,380,000 for question number 2. Okay, so as you notice, kapag itemized deductions, para lang normal income statement lang yan. Diba? Ganun lang ginagawa natin. And then, last one class, what if corporation naman, question number 3, and then availing the optional standard deduction. So, gagawin ko dyan, meron tayong gross sales. Okay. And then, so, compute natin ha. So, 1.6 times 0.4. Okay. So, meron tayong gross sales na 2.6 million. And then, meron tayong cost of sales na 1.1 million. We have non-operating income na 100,000. Tama ba class pag in-add ko yan? So 2.6 minus 1.1 plus 100, 1.6 million. 1.6 million is actually our gross income. Tama lang yan? Kasi gross income, gross sales minus cost of sales, syempre add mo yung ibang income, non-operating income, 1.6 million. Okay? OSD natin is 40% of 1.6 million. Times 0.4, you get 640,000. Okay, 1.6 million minus 640,000, you get 960,000. Net taxable income natin for question number 3 is 960,000. 1660, question number 1. Question number 2, 1380. Question number 3, 960,000. Okay, let's go to number 8. Number 8 natin class, how much is the deductible, charitable, and other contributions? Okay, a domestic corporation has the following data on income and expenses. Gross income, 6.2 million. Deductions, 2.5 million. Contribution to government for priority project. Pag priority activities, deductible in full. Tama? Contribution to foreign private foundation. Kapag foreign private, hindi yan deductible. Okay? Wala yan sa deductible in full, wala din yan sa with limit. Wala kasi nakalagay doon, if you look back, no? Nakalagay dyan, donation to foreign institution or international organization in pursuance or in compliance with agreements, treaties, or special laws. Dapat may treaty. Dapat may special law. Nakalagay dyan, foreign private foundation. Okay? So, hindi deductible yan. Lagyan mo ng X. Contribution to domestic charitable organization. Walang sinabing priority activity, therefore, with limit yan. Gets? Okay. So, how much is the deductible charitable contributions? So, dalawa yan. Meron tayong in full, which is the 100,000. Tama? And then yung with limit natin, compute natin yan. Paano nga ba sir yung computation? Compute natin yung net taxable income before contributions. Kapag individual, 10%. Kapag corporation, 5%. Dito corporation, so 5%. Yan. Ganito gagawin ko dyan class. Yung gross income natin na 6.2 million, okay? Minus natin yung allowable deductions na 2.5. Okay? So let's say ito yung deductions excluding yung mga contributions. Okay? This is net taxable income before contributions. 6.2 million minus 2.5, 3.7 million. Okay? Multiply natin by 5%. Yung limit natin is 3.7 million times 5%, 185,000. Ito yung limit natin. Ito yung maximum. Okay? Ngayon class, yung actual, tama ba? Yung actual natin is 190. Tama? Actual is 190. Siyempre, ito yung limit. Piliin natin whichever is lower, you have 185,000. So yung limit natin, yung with limit, 185,000. Answer natin class for number 8 is letter C, 285,000. Okay. So that's letter C. Let's go to number 9. So as you notice guys, madali lang yung computation sa deductions, di ba? Easy lang yan. Number 9. An employer maintains pension trust for its employees. So ibig sabihin, funded. Tama, funded yung pension. The following contributions are made. Meron kang current service cost and meron kang past service cost. Sabi ni sir, pag current service cost, 100% deductible yan for the year. Pag past service cost, i-divide natin by 10. Okay? How much is the deductible pension contributions? Very easy. 2019, 2020, and 2021. Lagyan natin dito, current service cost and past service cost. 2019, meron tayong 1 million for 3 years. Past service cost, 800,000 divided by 10, that's 80. So meron tayong 80, okay? And then meron tayong past service cost in 2020, 600,000 divided by 10, 60,000. 60,000, 60,000. Okay, so let's add. 2019, we have 1,080,000. 2020, we have 1,140,000. 2021, 1,140,000. Okay, final answer for number 9 is letter D, 1,080,000, 1,140,000, and 1,140,000. Let's have a short break.